Oladeji Olaleye in the studio with us this morning. Good morning, Barrister. Good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here again.
Compliments of the season.
Same to you. I
What
hope
is
you are
the
getting
plan?
all the meats ready and
I was eating, Barrister. No, don't do
the
that.
rice
don't,
and soup
don't,
very
don't do
plenty.
reverse psychology. You know where I was to say I'm coming. To say I'm coming. We are coming to your house.
Well, there's no doubt
to
about
come
it.
and eat all the meat.
We are celebrating it. We thank God, despite all the odds
Yeah,
this year.
despite all the odds, yes. We're thankful to be alive. So much going on. So much going on in the country amid the hunger and everything. But now the minister has announced plans for abandoned federal buildings and assets in Lagos State. We'll look at that and later in there. Nigerians will be happy. So we'll talk about that later on. But let's kick things off with this one as regards Lagos. The federal government within the week confirmed its readiness to rehabilitate and upgrade unused and dilapidated buildings and assets in the state in the coming months. The Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Dangiwa, confirmed this during an official facility assessment visit in Lagos. And Dangiwa said that the buildings left unrehabilitated for some time pose challenges and security concerns for Lagosians, and he lamented the deplorable state of various federal government buildings assets, noting the lack of water and electricity supply with most facilities in disrepair. Okay, so, after all said and done, he noted that most of the institutions were not putting any of their funding towards the rehabilitation of the living conditions where they work. I think he added that when he was at the Tafawa Balewa Square, he revealed that the building houses over he talked about at Lagos Field Headquarters Office at Tafawa Balewa, I beg your pardon. He revealed that the building houses over 40 federal government ministries, departments, and agencies, including the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. And he's saying that funds are not put in there. So, Barrister, what do you make of this reports for, what the initiative by the federal government?
Well, I think this is an interesting one because there are quite a lot of buildings, a lot of structures that belongs to the federal government that are in a very terrible or decrepit state.
Okay.
Most of them are so dilapidated. Even you find some hoodlums living in many of those buildings. If you get to Ikoyi, you see a lot of such buildings that had been taken over by strange people.
Okay.
And some of these buildings were formerly official offices of some of the MDAs.
Okay.
A few of them were residents of highly placed top government functionaries. I think most of this problem came up when most of them were asked to move to Abuja.
Okay.
And of course, a lot of those buildings were left without anybody to occupy them and all of that. And not much of maintenance, over the years. Some of the structures are almost collapsing. If you go into Ikoyi, you see quite a lot of them. Even all over Lagos, if you go to even TBS, you see a lot of those structures. Strange people are occupying them, and there is no salvation from anywhere. So what the minister has tried to do is something that is commendable.
Okay.
Except that the only problem I have is whether or not the federal government has the money to renovate those structures at this time.
Why would the federal government
they've been complaining about funding, about financing. They've not even financed amenities, infrastructures for the Nigerian people. So putting such huge amount of money into those structures will take away from the people, will take quite a lot from the people.
But what is your opinion about the federal government saying there's no money?
That's the storyline they've always given us. But most of us don't believe that because of the ample resources that this country has, and because of the level of corruption that is going on. You hear of people stealing 20 billion, 80 billion, 100 billion, and you wonder where this money is being kept and why they have this kind of access, uninhibited access to the source of the fund and all of that. So my concern actually is whether or not where they are going to get that resources from, and what is the strategic objective that is behind renovating these structures. I would have thought that some of these structures, if they are able to identify, in fact, the problem is even identification. Because I remember the National Assembly, the 8th National Assembly, 7th National Assembly attempted to even identify some of these structures that belongs to the federal government. And the High Power Committee was set up then to find out which are some of these structures. And a lot of those things were shrouded in secrecy and all of that. I believe there are some of those assets that are not even in the coffers of government, in the list of government assets anymore. You find a lot of them, that maybe even Lagos state government had taken over and had renovated and is using. This is not an allegation, but I know quite a number of them that even the state government has taken over and all of that. So there is need for identification of those assets first, and then the strategic plan. What do you want to do with renovation of those buildings? Okay.
So what would
I would suggest that the best thing to do is to allow private investors to do the renovation and the management of these facilities, because obviously government doesn't have. Most of these structures were built in the colonial days.
Okay.
Some of these buildings in the colonial days, and the federal government does not really have any use for it. That's why over the years nobody had bothered about them. But
so it's funny that the federal government does not have use for buildings, but we have a lot of people sleeping on
that
the
are homeless
streets in
obviously,
Lagos. So
obviously.
what suggestions do you have as regards
Well,
revamping? What could it be used for?
Yes, most of these buildings are in the highbrow sector of the state. Okay, in most of the states, it's not only in Lagos. They have. If you go to Port Harcourt, they have them also. If you go to Enugu, Owerri, they have all these structures that are all abandoned by the federal government. And the problem of the Land Use Act also created that initial hindrance for the federal government, because when the land was given to the state, then most of the control system, the control system over even those their assets became a big problem for the federal government and all of that. So I think what should be done is the federal government should look at commercializing or privatizing the renovation and the use of those structures, okay, to be able to create wealth, as it were.
As it were. Okay, I was going to ask you how you think this directly benefits communities in Lagos. But before that, something crossed my mind, not to deviate, but I'm sure that you've seen a lot of people sleeping on the streets, especially
obviously,
in VI here.
Obviously.
When you're on your way to work or on your way out, you see so many people just
the
put
number
the
is
nylon
increasing
there.
every day.
So what should the Lagos state government be doing about this? What ministry is supposed to oversee? I believe that's social welfare, right?
Well, we don't seem to have government that are populist in their ideology. Nigerian government, they are not populist. They are not interested in the welfare of the people. That's just the truth about it.
First, we need
Rather,
to
they make things difficult even for the people to survive. That's why you discover that in Lagos and most of the urban sectors, there are a lot of shanties that are built up everywhere. On canals, by any space that is available, people build something to be able to survive. Because there are no shelter. The government does not have any housing policy for anybody, all right? And even the few housing policy that exists cannot even take care of the workers, the federal government workers, the state government workers. Many of them are still living with the people and all of that. So you find that the large number of our people that are homeless it's increasing every day, and under the bridge.
Under the bridge. And yes,
if you go to all our
clearing of the shanties, what
yes,
would be the alternative for those people because now I was seeing a special report that a lot of people that were even homeowners in those shanties are now practically on the streets.
And that is correct. When you have a government, even those that are built structure, that are built their homes, okay, you find government demolishing them on the pretext that they don't have planning or regulation approval and all of that. So rendering more and more people homeless.
So first of all, let's identify the ministry that is supposed to oversee this, so that at least
at the state level or at the national
level.
At
the state level.
Okay.
Who is supposed to oversee this in Lagos State? I mean, the issue of people.
Unfortunately, Lagos State does not have any ministry for housing.
What of social welfare? Aren't they supposed to take care of people
there is social
on the
welfare.
streets?
Yes, economy and social welfare.
So how effective has that been in the state so
far? That's why we are looking at it. It's not effective. It's not effective, and the objective is not. There is no policy to provide houses for the Nigerian people, for the Lagos people. There's no policy in place. I don't know of any. I don't know of any housing estate that the Lagos state government had completed to say, okay, for the low-income earner, this is where we want you people to move to. They are only interested in destroying people's properties and all that. They call it enforcement. Yeah. But seriously speaking, it's a kind of hoarding people into sections. Into when you demolish, before you demolish, there should be a resettlement plan. All right, but most times when they demolish, they don't have any plan for resettlement of the people. They don't have any plan to pay compensation and all of that. Okay. So where you have that kind of situation, what you have is a slum. You build a slum, a city that is a slum, because you can't hinder people from coming into Lagos. Conurbation is taking place in Lagos. There's a lot of social strangulation all over. People are moving into Lagos. Okay, Lagos is expanding beyond the original capacity and all of that. And with that, you expect the planning also to take care of some of these developments.
But even if you're not going to take care of the people that came on their own to Lagos, how about the indigents? How about people that
even
are
the
here?
Even the indigents.
So now, Barrister, enlighten us on the responsibility of government, even at the state and federal level, when it comes to housing.
Okay.
What is the responsibility of government when it comes to providing housing? Because I know that when I was reading on Jakonde, I think he did some things with housing and education.
Yeah, Jakonde was the only major government in Lagos that have addressed the problem of housing headlong.
So what is the expectation of the state government when it comes to issue of housing in the state?
Now, it is the duty and responsibility of the government. If you look at all the human rights charters, whether it's the African Human Rights Charter, People and Human Rights Charter, or you talk of even the Nigerian Constitution, or you talk of the Directive Principles of State Policy under Chapter 2 of our Constitution, all of them makes the duty of providing affordable accommodation and shelter for the Nigerian people. But unfortunately, government have failed. All successive government had failed in this mission. And even when they develop housing policy, it's only for political gimmicks, okay, and maybe for graft to be able to have money to steal and all of that.
Well, not all of them, though.
Well, not all of them, but that's the normal thing. Most of those projects, even some of those who embarked on them, they don't complete it. There are many abandoned projects by some governments for the past 8-10 years. You see them all around, even in this Lagos. And there is not much support for private investors who wants to build housing estates. There's not much support.
But aren't they reaping Lagosians off? I mean, the rents are off the roof.
Of course, obviously, that's why the rent is going up. Just as you are rightly observed, the rent is almost going to be difficult to live in Lagos in the next 5 years.
So what should the government do to look into that? Because more and more people will become homeless if we don't,
Well, the first thing is that they have to see it as an emergency, as a national emergency. The question of shelter for the people is a question of national, because it's one of the basic
it's your right as
of the people.
Yeah.
If you are talking about the right for food, maybe employment and good job, the right to have a shelter over your head, and the right for education, those three are basic and fundamental that any government should provide for its people. But all over Nigeria, over the years, that has not been the case. Well, the government prefer to build gigantic bridges at cost of hundreds of billions, and all of that, just because it allows for people to make wealth out of the proceeds of government. So I think we need to address that problem because increasingly more and more younger people are getting into the labor market. And a lot of people, there is expansion going on in our cities. So there has to be a strategic plan for housing of the people.
Yeah, very important. All right, so talking about the federal government moving to revamp the buildings that have been abandoned in Lagos now, how do you think this will improve the quality of life for Lagosians?
It's not going to affect the life of Lagosians. It's just the life of the people in government. When they renovate those houses, they take it over and distribute and share among themselves.
But crime will
that has always been.
Is that not an advantage?
No, it doesn't
because
remove any crime.
Security is talking about.
It's not about any security. It's just another way to spend money. If you ask me, it's another way to spend money. That's why I'm saying that government should not spend any money there. They should leave it for the private sector. There are people who can renovate it, turn it into facilities, either commercial facilities or infrastructure, or for people to rent and do business, and government to make money out of it. So that's what they should do, not spend our money.
If you leave it entirely up to the private sector, do you expect that the government, there should be some kind of regulation?
Yes, there should be some control.
Because you don't leave it entirely
it depends. Now it will not depend. It will not depend on the kind of policy that the government develop, the kind of privatization policy around it. If it's going to be lease management, all right, or if it's going to be built and control, increase capital for government or increase revenue for government.
And then we'll benefit from it now. You said we're not going to benefit
No. We are not. Even if the money gets into government,
you can't be so sure. Let's keep our fingers
we are Nigerians.
crossed. We
are Nigerians.
No, the money will come to us.
Oh,
we'll
we are Nigerians.
And very soon we'll stop. But really, though, what do you think the government should be doing to check this high rent issue in Lagos?
I think it's time that government put its feet down. When Lagos was created, the first military administrator of Lagos State, that's Mobolaji Johnson, did quite a lot in rent regulation, rent control, because there were decrees then. A lot of people opposed it, a lot of people were angry and all of that. But it was implemented and it brought good life to a number of people, brought hope to a number of families and all of that. And that assisted in the 70s to stabilize the economy. Because when people have a shelter over their head, their productivity will be affected. The national productivity will be affected. But if you don't have any place to stay, even their health will be affected.
Even crime will
be reduced and all of that. So you find that because of a lot of people rendered homeless, that's why bag snatching is very common table in some of those rooms. And you pay quite a lot of money, 1-point-something million.
So shouldn't that be regulated? Shouldn't the government set a standard or something?
Even a permanent secretary today cannot pay for those self-contained. Not to talk of an up-and-coming young man or even a man with a family and children of maybe 3 or 4. Where will they sleep in that small room? And then there's no regulation for the kind of shanties that people are building in Lagos. No implementation or enforcement.
But what would be your expectation, like as regards after demolishing the shanties? We're hearing of the underbridge. I think the one in Ikoyi and then was it Obale?
I am opposed to.
What do you think the government should do? Okay, you talked about resettlement.
Yes, there has to be a resettlement plan first. Government must have a place where they are taking people. Even chicken, if you want to move chicken or goats, you have to, from where they are, you have to prepare a different place for them. Even though that's an animal, that's domesticated animal. How much more human beings? The way we hoard our people into terrible condition, deplorable situation, is something that baffles me sometimes. How government can go to sleep, having demolished and destroyed the lives of people when their people are homeless. The only time you see them is when they need votes. They come with all kinds of promises.
But sometimes too, you might see a case where even when you are moved to a resettlement, you rent out the house. They move you to resettlement. We Nigerians, we have this culture that has to be. Sometimes some Nigerians will want to play smart.
And let them do it first. Let them first of all
and you go and collect rents that you are the landlord of
let
the
them,
house.
Let them.
But that doesn't take away the fact that the
government should provide
should act on it.
Yes.
And do the needful. Even for in quotes the mentally challenged.
Yes, and that they are also a big challenge.
That is the responsibility of the government.
They are a big challenge
across every state of the federation.
Yes, the disabled, the insane,
the insane on the road. Because I don't think it's very prevalent in Lagos, but even in some states.
It's very prevalent. Common in Lagos. Very common
They move
everywhere.
all over Lagos.
Yes.
In some states in the south, you see them. In fact, as you're entering any car, they are entering with you.
Definitely.
Like it's normal. As you're buying something, it's standing
It's
there.
worse in the north.
And that's supposed to be government property.
It's worse in the north.
Yes.
I remember I went to my Maiduguri restaurant to eat, and I bought my meal. I put it on the table while I went to wash my hand. An Almanjiri just ran in and spat into the food.
Wow.
And collected the food and ran out of the restaurant. It's common in the north.
Wow. Well.
So that tells you the mindset of the deplorable, the wretched of the earth, as we call them. They have nobody who caters for them. The government doesn't bother about them, and even those they live by whatever they can get.
For a day. The government is supposed to be responsible for.
They should be responsible for
rehabilitation
them.
Centers,
they should be responsible.
More psychiatric. I think the psychiatric hospital at Yaba is already very crowded.
That's the only place that is functioning.
Only place that is functioning,
and so the capacity is low compared with the the numbers
the
of
number
people
of
they
people
have to
going
cater
into
for.
mental
Yes,
challenge.
yes.
And so it's worrisome when we have more people even coming down
A
with
lot
mental
of
challenge
people with
situation.
mental health problems. If you see people on the road these days, you find some people talking to themselves, getting angry with
It's even
themselves.
a security issue when we have people that are mentally challenged
Yes.
on the road, because anything can happen. And it's your line of work that when a mentally challenged person commits a crime, you can't hold it against them.
Obviously.
You're on your
If
own.
they kill, that's the end of
That's
it.
the end of
You
it.
can't
So
prosecute them.
it's even a security challenge,
Yes.
knowing that, I think one time a friend of mine, the house just beside her neighbor and the woman is always cooking. She's mentally challenged. She's always cooking. There's always smoke coming out of her uncompleted building, and it's just beside somebody staying there.
Yeah.
So what if she decides to just light up,
Yeah.
the thing on fire?
Or there's
So
a seizure.
There's a lot more.
Or there's a seizure.
Yes, there's a lot more that the government should be doing. But let's take a break from that now and look at what former national chairman of the PDP had to say, or has to say, Chief Bode George. On Wednesday, he urged President Bola Tinubu to reduce the price of petrol to 300 naira per litre, noting that this will enable Nigerians, that's outside Lagos, everywhere, celebrate the festive season. What are your thoughts on this temporary reduction of petrol price?
Well, let me first of all, on a lighter note, say that thank God that Chief Bode George did not leave Nigeria when Tinubu became the president, as he said before then. Maybe some of the suggestions he's been given to assist the nation.
Okay.
We will not have had the opportunity of having it. He's an elder statesman. He's somebody who has been contributing ideas, but most of his ideas falls into deaf ears. That's the challenge.
Yeah,
that
but he was national chairman. Like, is it not beyond
national
you
chairman
doing
of a party in opposition.
Yeah, but they were once
Then,
in power. So
when they were in power, I think there was a lot of push.
From him.
Yes, even in Lagos. But Lagos was in the hands of Tinubu all through. So there's not much he could do for Lagos, even though he was the godfather of the PDP in Lagos at that time. There was little we can do. Because in terms of impacting the people directly. But this idea that he's bringing is a populist idea. It's an idea that Nigerians will share and believe and accept. But the government is not going to share the same idea. I don't see them accepting what he's talking about.
But do we really need a temporary fix or a permanent solution? Is it something that we want the price
We
to
want
reduce
both.
for
Let them start
300?
with the temporary first, like this man has suggested now. At least it will put smile on the faces of Nigerians.
On the faces. But now, is that a realistic demand by the elder
It
statesman?
is a realistic demand because our oil sector have been mismanaged. We don't have any problem with the oil sector if it's properly managed. Unfortunately, it's been mismanaged. And it's all because some people want to make money for themselves and themselves. They are not really interested in the interest of the nation, as it were. All our refineries, Kimberly, you'll be surprised that in most of our refineries, people are there working.
Yeah,
and they are not producing. And salaries are being paid.
What are they now working on?
That's the question we should ask.
No, maybe they are working on bringing the refinery back to life.
How long? How long does it take to put a refinery? If the refineries are not working, liberalize the process of licensing. There are middle-scale refineries that can be established by turnkey projects. Some of them don't even cost. They cost as much as $20 million, $40 million. They will bring all the equipment and structure it for low and medium production. All right? Allow that to happen. The modular refineries that even some people are building in the Niger Delta, what is the reaction of government to it? They go there and destroy it. So you wonder what do they really want? What do the federal government really want concerning our oil sector? And you have a monopoly. One of the problems we have is that we have a monopoly in the oil sector. Is even now they privatize it, the NNPC. I don't see what the NNPC is doing for the government. There should be over 30 of NNPCs in Nigeria if we are going to really get the realistic oil economy in place. All right? A situation where you have only one institution determining our life, and the process there is not even transparent. They don't account for what they are making and all of that. And let me also mention this. They take our crude oil to other countries to refine. and they bring back only
allegedly.
yes, they bring back only the crude oil. What happens to the condensate?
Well,
There are not less than 24 condensate in a crude oil refining that are used for petrochemical products. A lot of things they use it for it. Talk about tires, talk about plastics, talk about drugs, talk all manner of things.
okay, but the thing is, what's it called?
So there is wealth there. It's the mismanagement.
But what is the role of the state government when it comes to building refineries? Is it entirely up to, because you are thorough with the constitution, is there any part of it that limits state governments from looking
the laws,
for a way
the
to
laws,
build
the petroleum act, okay, which is now the PIB, okay, does not allow anybody to just go into the business. You have to obtain licenses. That's where they regulate it. There is nothing wrong with Lagos state government, for instance, taking up a license for exploration or seismic operation or geodetic survey or assessment or even production or refining.
They have been.
But the law does not allow it. The law does not permit them to do so.
Yeah, but there are a lot of things that the law doesn't permit. Like, there's been a lot of conversation around VAT and the rest. Even before this current tax reform bills, Wike was vehemently talking about, when he was the Rivers State governor, I think.
Yes.
He was vehemently talking about VAT as to why the FIRS should not be determine the VAT, what's it called, allocation. So have they even have you heard of any challenge by the state governments as regards refining, challenging the already
many of our state governments are not even interested because of the complexity involved in the production line, in the exploration, and also in the processing, the refining of crude oil. But there's a lot of money. A state can make a lot of money if it's interested in assisting in that. And the more states get involved, the more the rich class get involved in our oil sector, and they are permitted to invest, the more our oil sector will produce the golden egg for all Nigerians. And the price of crude oil will go down naturally. But where you create a cartel or a kind of oligopoly or a kind of monopoly, and it's shrouded around only one or two people or three people or one or two companies for a whole nation, that's where we have the bottleneck. That's the friction to me in the policies in our oil sector. They want to make sure that only few players are there in certain aspects, some areas of that oil sector. And that will not allow for growth. It does not allow for increased income, and we cannot allow NNPC to continue to do what it's doing. There has to be an unbundling. Now it's a private company. Other companies should be allowed to come in. It should not be only NNPC that will be detained. And then if the government should separate regulation, the function of NNPC as a regulatory body, from the function of NNPC as a marketing or sale or production company for the crude oil. They are two separate things. You can't fuse it in one institution and expect the nation to reap the benefit of the oil sector.
But now, the reason we're having the high cost of everything now is because of the high cost of the products, the situation behind the situation around the petrol product. But now, what is the role of the state government in helping to reduce this cost of living? Because I believe that once transportation cost is reduced, are there some policies that, for example, the Lagos state government can come up with in terms of transportation?
Look, if you ask me, the government can do little. The state government can do little. Let me tell you why.
Okay,
let me tell you why. You see, the state governors are encumbered already. Granted that some of them have their own interest, all right? The oil sector, the money you pay to buy a crude oil, to fuel your car, to fuel your generator, once it's so high, it affects every sector of the economy. And I think that's why I support Chief Bode George's suggestion in the interim, to bring down the cost of this product. And the president said it before. He said, for Kombale, Amamuwale. But we are still expecting him to muwale up to now.
Yes. You know that another reason that some economic experts, the ones that have come on the show and other ones, they would say that part of the reason we're having the situation with crude and petrol is because of diversifying. There's no we don't have an alternative. We're heavily reliant on
No,
crude
I don't
exports.
think that's the problem.
But now, the thing is, if we're talking about the economy and how to boost it, is that entirely up to the federal government? Because, for example, now, I know that Uzwaga in Delta State did a lot with transportation.
Yes.
In terms of subsidizing the cost of transportation.
Yes.
Because the people are paying tax. The state is supposed to generate revenue one way or the
Okay,
other.
I get the point from where you are talking
Yes.
from.
So how do you then cushion the how?
Okay.
What are expectations?
Now, if the only aspect that government can get involved is maybe government needs to have new mass transit policies. You know, I know a couple of government already have what is supposed to be a mass, but it's not really mass transit because number one, they don't have enough vehicles, enough buses to take care of the daily needs. Like Lagos, for instance, Lagos have the BRT thing. If you go to any of the depot,
So
you see the people lining up for hours on ending. The buses don't come. Even when they come, they are thin on the ground. The number of people that needs the service far more than the number of buses. So I think maybe they can start with that to buy more of those buses, push them in, and then also government too can have depot. The state government, there's nothing that stops state government from having its own depot for fuel. All right.
We
and
have
also
we have a call on this line. I don't know. Hello, good morning. Hello. Oh, we lost that one. Don't call the WhatsApp line. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can call 0805-092-0927. That's 0805-092-0927. Or you can call 0705-890-4927. Those are the numbers to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. So you were talking about
yes,
depots.
there is also need for state government to have depots, oil depots, where they can have a storage of crude oil and also sell at a subsidized price to their state people, those who are in the state.
Okay, I'm not sure why this call is bouncing out. Okay, so now you know why I'm going to take you on that. As long
Yes.
as much as I don't like to heavily talk about activities of what the government is doing, but now they are paid monthly allocation.
Yes.
And governors in the south, get more allocation. Like I think Akwa Ibom is the highest Delta state between Rivers and
Yeah.
thereabout. Even so what and I mean the money is for the people.
Yes.
So how should the government now ease this situation?
Yes.
Okay, let's say we're paying high cost of for petrol. What about not paying much for food or the shelter that we talked about? At least to ease the situation for the residents.
Okay.
So-
The problem we have is that our state governors are not proactive and they are not strategic in their thinking. There are lots of opportunity, like this oil sector we are saying now, that even the state can get involved. Okay, there is nothing that stops a state, or except for the laws anyway, that stops a state from having fuel stations. Nothing. If they push it to the federal government, private individuals are given license to set it up. All right. So why can't Lagos state government, for instance, or Cross River State, or River State, or Delta State provide these things? After all, it's from the oil is from their place. So how come they don't have fuel stations of their own? How come it's only the federal government that have an NPC installing fuel stations all over? Why can't the state government do so for the people? That will benefit the people if that is done. Then also, some of them can seek for refining licenses. Okay, some of them can. I know a state like Bayelsa, is not heavily populated, and they don't really have the wide expanse of land. Most of their land.
Okay, let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Turn down the volume of your radio, please.
Okay, I'm doing that.
All right. It's too noisy on your end. Okay, please turn down the volume of your radio before you call in. We're looking at everything as it affects us directly, and what's the way forward? Because I think you first have to know who
The
to
problem,
hold.
yeah.
You have to know the problem and what ministries to oversee that problem before you can now say, okay, fine, this is it. So you were talking about
Yes, what the state government can do to get involved in the oil economy in the country.
It's not even about getting involved in the oil economy alone.
They should not just wait for
it's a situation of there's a lot now that the situation around PMS is causing for Nigeria.
Yes.
So if we're looking at how, because beyond the moves to open a new university in Bielsa, beyond all those other moves that we're hearing of, the
Yes.
conversations around VAT, and negotiants don't have where to sleep. This, so many. So how should it be alleviated? I know you already answered it already, so we're not going to dwell on it. But now I want to ask you about the PH refinery, since we're talking about fuel. And recently we heard the situation coming from that one of the host communities chairman or leader talked about how the petrol in the station was about 3 years old and it's not fully operational as against what is reported in the media. So what do you have to say about the news we got and then the counter news we got from we were excited to hear that the PH refinery was working again.
Yes.
And
well, you see, it's all about propaganda, political propaganda. Okay, today you hear it's working, tomorrow you hear they have
working.
technical problem and all of that.
Okay.
That's the point I was making, that most of these refineries were built before independence or shortly after independence. And the technology at that time is no longer the technology of today.
Today, yeah.
All right. So there is a need for us to overhaul even the policy around those refineries.
Yeah.
I know for many decades, the turnaround maintenance was almost drowning the country of resources. Every year, turnaround maintenance, and it was never turned around by anyone at the end of the day. So we have that technical problem, and you cannot fix an outdated refinery, a refinery that is no longer in vogue. Okay, no matter how much you put on it, you will only be wasting your time. So there is need to build new refineries. If you ask me, they should sell off all those refineries.
To who?
To any foreign investors. Foreign investors. It doesn't matter. Foreign investors. Now let them also liberalize the process of construction of refineries. Unfortunately, you can see what is going on with Dangote. Dangote, with good intentions, wanted to assist the government by building that refinery. But you can see how wicked and mean some of those in government can be. Right now, that is no longer working. But if there are many of Dangotes constructing refinery, we'll be able to expand.
I think BOA is coming up in Akwa Ibom.
Obviously, is good for the economy.
Okay, but now, the one thing that is underreported, since we're talking about the crude and the situation about petrol, now, one thing that is underreported is the oil theft situation in the Niger Delta. I think the finance ministry has repeatedly talked about how that is seriously impacting the economy as well. The loss of, I think was it last year, December, there was a ship that was allegedly caught stealing oil from the Niger Delta axis. And till now, we don't know the update on that. I think it was reported by the Tompolo company or something like that. And then, we haven't heard any reports of that. But that's costing the country billions of naira as it is. And it's also compounding, because when you're saying there is no fuel, there's no crude to sell to Dangote, there's no this, there's no that, and we are losing that a lot to oil theft in the Niger Delta. So what would you want? What are you expecting? Because now you can't say the states cannot work in synergy.
Look, to me, this narrative has stayed too long on our desk.
So how do we change it?
And if you ask me, government is only using as an excuse to explain away the obvious incompetence of government, as far as I'm concerned. The obvious incompetence of government. Because how can a government say people are stealing our crude oil? That's why we're having financial crisis. That's exactly what they are telling. It's a narrative that is unthinkable. Unthinkable because government have all the institutions that should manage the oil sector properly, that should secure the assets, that should put in place a process that will make it impossible for anybody to steal this particular product. Now, do you know that there is no metering of our pipeline? No metering. Nobody knows how much crude oil is produced in a day. At least government in the last 40 years have never told us how much crude oil is produced every day. It's just by policy purpose that we know that they tell us 2.5 million barrels per day. But we don't know whether they produce more than that. We don't know whether they produce less than that every day. Then you also find that most of the pipelines that produce this oil, they are not from the refinery to the flow stations, even to the shipping edge. You can't tell. You can't tell how these things move. So to me, if people are stealing crude oil, it's a shame for government to be telling us that. I mean, I think they should stop telling us those narratives. They should just do what they are supposed to do. And let me tell you also.
Maybe the whistleblowing thing can now help. If you see somebody stealing the oil.
No private person like me can steal crude oil in this country. It is highly complex.
No, but Barrister, what are the coal fire situation in that? I don't know. Are those not private?
Those are scoopers. When there is an oil spillage, people go there to scoop.
No, coal fire. People refining crude in the creeks in the Niger Delta. That's the practice.
Do you call that oil theft? They are refining.
No, but it's illegal, Barrister.
It's illegal because government should regulate. When you don't have a regulation in place, and there is a failure of government, most of even these pipes you are talking about, most of them were set up 1956, 1955. Most of those pipes are leaking, causing all kinds of spillages. And when pipes are leaking, it's an invitation to treat. People who want to steal, scoop, do other things, will add additional pipeline to it. And it's something that is heavy capital intensive. It's not something that anybody can be involved in. So if government plays that, the Navy should be held responsible also.
But I had
the Nigerian Navy.
Yeah, I had
the Nigerian Army, the tax force.
Yeah, so I had a retired.
They all know what is going on.
Yeah, so I had a retired army officer. He talked about the responsibility of customs as well. As much as
all of them are involved.
The army responsible. Customs.
Who are those who are escorting those ships to the high sea from the coastal line to the high seas? How come ships that bunker illegally are able to transverse our sea to the high sea to sell these crude oils? Who are the people behind it?
And I hear they know the crude coming from Nigeria and the one that is not coming from Nigeria.
So we are behaving like an ostrich. Government is behaving like an ostrich, putting his head in the sand and thinking that it's covered.
So now what is the role of Nigerians now? And
we don't have a role. Nigerians don't have a role. We are the victim. We are the victim of the whole thing.
Who are the people in government?
I'm a victim. You are a victim.
Who are the people in
government? We are the one paying for the incompetence. We are the one paying.
Okay, well, so but still, we had to.
And we are not benefiting anything from it anyway. I've never benefited. I can't tell you what I benefited from the fact that Nigeria is an oil-producing state.
Yeah, well, don't you think, because now leaders like Obasanjo have talked about mentality restructure, that maybe we should shift our mind from being so reliant
Those in government needs to shift their mentality first.
Because are they not Nigerians that became in government?
Well, they are in government. They are leaders. They should lead by example.
Well, but once upon a time, this country was run on agriculture.
Yes.
The North,
and we're better off.
The North was the mainstay of the economy before this crude oil thing. So now, as much as there's a lot of conversation around crude, petrol, that's why I'm heavy on diversifying. I don't think there's anything that stops the state. Is there any law? Let me know, because that's your line. When it comes to tourism, I know Donald Duke did that heavily in Calabar.
Yes.
And at some point, a lot of people were coming from around the world to Calabar for the festival, for the carnival.
Yeah.
I think Brazil has #1 in the world, and Calabar was even competing for like #2 or 3rd spot.
Yeah, at that time.
Yes, at the time. And now, so even if you don't have, what are some ways that they can look inward? Because I don't want to believe that even some people have talked of, okay, when it comes to security, you hear that, the state governments now, we talked about this crude oil theft thing. They'll tell you it's entirely up to the federal government. The bullfire situation that was lingering in Rivers. But you collect security votes. So what's that used for? What's the... no, you should get... Because that's your field. You're the one that understands the Constitution. So what's the security vote for? What are those...
there is no security vote in the Constitution, unfortunately.
No, but we hear that
they just collect... It's another graft.
It's
another way of stealing money. That security vote. Where is it in the sections of the Constitution? It's not there. It's not there.
What is the money supposed to be used for?
We should ask them.
Is it for protecting the people of the state?
Which security are they providing? We should ask them whether they have a separate military or a separate police system of their own, or a national or a state guard of their own. They don't have it. So what is this governor collecting security vote for? We don't know. Maybe there is a need to now ask them what is the legal backing for it. Is there a National Assembly law that we don't know about, or does the Constitution allow it? We need to know. I can tell you as a lawyer, I don't know.
You don't know what
the legal basis for that security vote, and a lot of money is being stacked from the income of the state every month.
We hear state governors talk about how I think Wike was heavy on,
and they will tell you that it's not auditable.
How do you mean?
That they can't look at it. Nobody should. Don't investigate it. Yeah, it's security vote.
So because if you're collecting security votes that belong to the people, it's you.
Does it belong to the people?
Is it not?
Who collects it?
If you're from a state, is it not your barrister? Wait now. If you're from a state, are you not paying tax?
It's our tax they are eating as security votes.
I don't know if they are eating tax, but I'm saying that it is our, even the oil, and
yes.
now the role of
it's a very sordid thing. Seriously, Kimberly, it's a sordid.
So what is the role of the traditional rulers now? Because I believe that they also at some point
they have become political, so they can't. They are part of the problem.
Okay.
Our traditional rulers are no longer fathers. They are now political elements.
Is it a case of being political elements, or they don't have a voice?
Well, they are supposed to be.
The Constitution doesn't empower them. So
no, it's not about empowering anything. The power they have now is more than even the power. I don't even subscribe to the idea of having this agitation going on, that there should be a house of chiefs like we had it in the First Republic and all that. There are people canvassing that argument that to allow the traditional rulers to be more involved in governance. But I don't think it's going to solve anything. Because personally,
with the removal of subsidy, we understand that the state governments are awash with cash at the moment.
Yeah, they have a lot of money
in their hands.
A lot of money.
Some would even say there should be no need to increase school fees or any kind of, because you're awash with cash. The money from subsidy is so. But then, if you keep saying that they don't really have a lot they can do, because that's the father of the state. Aside security,
no, I'm talking of the traditional ruler, not the governors.
No, initially you said the state governors cannot really do much because of the fact that.
No, I said their perception is not towards that. Those areas are not their interests. You have to.
But it is a responsibility.
It's their responsibility. Yes, you and I agree. You and I agree on that. But the thing is, do they see it as their responsibility? That's the issue.
Okay, so we talked about the petrol situation, given that Chief Bode George came up to appeal to the president to please subsidize costs from his own pockets. That's what he's saying, because that's the fast way to do it. If you're going to wait for it to go through NAS and every other approval or any other thing, that will take till the end of the next term, if the president gets another term.
Yes.
So, but now Chief Bode George is saying that you guys should just do it directly from your pockets and see how you can bring down the cost to 300 naira. And do you think that's obtainable? Working with some of the marketers to see how well-meaning Nigerians should just pay the money and share that for?
Well, we have a cartelization in the oil sector, just as I've explained earlier on.
Yeah.
That's why it's so difficult now, to do much. And the president is the only one that can crack the whole thing. Because in Nigeria today, the powers of the president are enormous.
But sometimes we suffer ourselves. That's why when I ask you the role of Nigerians now, don't we suffer ourselves? Sometimes when there are relief packages, or you hear that certain amounts are donated. Which relief package?
Kimberly,
no,
which
but
relief
wait now. We heard some people receiving alerts.
Where? Which alert?
No, the thing is, for example, if let's say you are the president, you put me in charge of a particular project, and then you give me the money to disburse to the people.
Yes.
What I'm doing with that money, you may not have a clear idea of what I'm doing with the money.
Yes.
So I will be the one also now suffering. And then I might also have a manager or a supervisor under me, maybe a personal assistant. And then I'll give the money to, and then the personal assistant will also have his boys or her boys.
Yes, you have rightly said.
And before it comes down.
Nothing comes down at the end of the day.
Well, so
that's what we were all in this country during Buhari's regime. Yeah. Buhari was said to have spent over 200 billion, I guess, on social welfare.
Yeah.
Till today, we are still asking, who are the people who collected the money?
I think he is asking too.
The president President Tinubu came in to try and find out who are those 50 million Nigerians?
So, Barrister,
Till today, that issue had not been resolved.
for the sake of time now,
Yes.
what is your, because this is the Christmas period, the chief and some other people, the conversation around petroleum is still ongoing because it's affecting all of us.
Yes.
The cost of transportation.
Look,
the
it's
cost
going
of
to go
food.
up again by January, February.
No,
I
let's be
I don't need to
positive.
be. No, it's not about being
No, let's
positive.
be
It's about being
positive.
realistic.
Because now, the marketers say they're working closely with Dangote now to see how.
It will be a miracle for them to pull it down, to bring down the prices. Because, look, they are already enjoying the income coming from this.
No, because okay, if you're buying it at a high rate, you're looking at operational cost as well. It's a business for them now. Because when I talked to somebody from Ipman was on the program, and I asked, and he talked about operational costs. So they also have to make money. And he was even saying
You are
that
you are just supporting what I've just said now. That it's going to be like a miracle to achieve that. But it's something that can be done.
yeah. Okay, so we have to go now. Thank you so much for your time, Barrister.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. You put me to too much wahala, Kimberly.
No, we need to know. We need to know how to get our.
But it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much. So, Barrister,
You are a delight any day.
Oh, that's such a nice compliment. That's a nice way to wrap up my week.
Yes,
yes.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, your final thoughts in 30 seconds. We talked about housing. We talked about petrol. So, what's your final?
Yes, I want the government to be more responsible and more responsive to the welfare needs of the Nigerian people. You know, the Nigerian people had been very tolerant with this bad government over the years. And you saw the last time that the attempt was made to try and stir up that there's a need for good governance. You can see how many people were killed and all that, which shows that the government is not ready to listen to anything about good governance and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think the time has come for those who are in government to do something for the Nigerian people.
Yeah.
The Nigerian people are waiting, they are expecting. This is a holiday period. Everybody is expecting that things should be easy for many Nigerians.
them, yeah.
Many people don't even know how they are going to
Christmas will
celebrate.
be.
No, but some people don't even know what they are going
No,
to
but
do
just-
with themselves.
With themselves, even the people sleeping on the road,
Obviously,
cannot bother about
obviously,
Christmas.
and that's not good enough for a
That's
nation.
not good. And then some are busy scamming people all over the road.
Yeah.
The dollars scam.
How much do they even
Have
make
you heard
from this
of
scam?
it?
Yes,
Well, I just learned of it recently in Lagos.
it's
that
all about
people-
survivor.
People move around with their cars and are scamming people.
Yeah.
The people that are trying to survive, you're scamming them.
Yeah.
That's why I said we also have a problem, Barrister.
Well,
we also have a problem.
Nigeria is fast
Where are
becoming
you
a
scamming
jungle.
from?
Nigeria is fast becoming a jungle as a result of the reality of life.
Of life.
So
All right,
everybody
Barrister,
wants to
thank you
survive.
again.
Thank
All
you.
right,
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, all right, that's it on Spotlights. Join me again on Monday for another edition. Please protect your peace at all costs. Amidst everything going on, just keep your fingers crossed. Stay positive, spread love. All right, enjoy your day. Enjoy your weekend. All of us. See you later.